everyone. I'm going to read a story to you today. It's called Little Red Riding Hood, and this story was written a really long time ago, so it's been retold a whole bunch of times. This one was retold by Trina Hyman. Once upon a time, there lived a little girl named Elizabeth, who lived with her mother in a house at the edge of the village. Everyone loved her, but she was especially dear to her grandmother, who loved her more than anything in the world. And one day, her grandmother sewed a red velvet cloak with a hood and gave it to Elizabeth for her birthday. It looked so pretty, and she liked it so much that she would never wear anything else. And that's why everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. Did you know her real name was Elizabeth? I didn't. Early one morning, her mother said, "Come here, Red Riding Hood, and listen to me. I want you to take this loaf of fresh bread and some sweet butter to your grandmother. She's sick in bed, and it will do her a world of good. Go right away before the sun gets too hot, and promise me that you won't daydream and stray off down the path. And don't run, or you'll fall. And when you get there, don't forget your manners. Say good morning, and please and thank you. And don't stay too long, or else you will tire out your grandmother. And once you've had a nice visit, come straight home." "Yes, Mama," said Little Red Riding Hood. "I promise I'll do just as you tell me." Now, her grandmother lived in a cottage in the middle of the forest. It was a pretty long walk from the village, but Little Red Riding Hood knew the way, so she wasn't afraid to go by herself. When she had walked far enough into the woods to feel just a bit lonely, who should she meet but a sly, hungry old wolf. She had no idea what a wicked wolf he was. So she wasn't afraid of him. "Good morning, Red Riding Hood," he said. "Good morning, Wolf," she answered politely. "Where are you off to so early in the day, my dear?" the wolf asked. Uh-oh. Should she tell him? Or is he a stranger? "I'm going to my grandmother's. She's sick in bed, you know." "Is that so?" he said. "And what have you got in your basket?" "Oh, a loaf of bread and some sweet butter. Mama and I baked yesterday, so I'm taking a loaf to grandmother. It will do her a world of good." "Isn't that nice? And where does your grandmother live, Little Red Riding Hood?" "Oh, it's a good walk farther down to the woods. Her house is the one by the 3 big oak trees, right next to the blackberry hedge. And there's a stream running by her garden. Surely you know the place, Little Red Riding Hood." Uh-oh. She told him exactly where her grandma lives. Think that was safe? The wolf thought to himself, "Aha! This tender little girl will be a plump morsel, a good dessert after the old woman, but I must be clever about this, so that I can make a good meal out of the two of them." He walked along a little with Little Red Riding Hood for a while, and then he said, "Oh, just look at the beautiful wildflowers, Red Riding Hood. They're a sight even for my tired old eyes. Why don't you relax and take a look around and see how lovely the world is?" What did her mom say about that? I think she said, "Make sure you stay on the path and go straight to Grandma's." Then Little Red Riding Hood looked away from the path, and when she saw the sunlight dancing through the trees and the wildflowers and the butterflies all scattered through, she thought, "I'm sure my grandmother would feel happier if I took her a bunch of flowers. They are a sight for tired old eyes, I know, and it's still pretty early in the day, so I have plenty of time to pick them." She said goodbye to the wolf and wandered among the trees to pick the flowers. Each time she picked one, she always saw another, even prettier one, farther away. And so she left the path and went deeper and deeper into the forest. And meanwhile, the wicked wolf went straight to the grandmother's cottage and knocked softly on the door. "Who's there?" called the grandmother in her bed. "It's me, Little Red Riding Hood," said the wolf in a tiny voice. "I've brought you a loaf of bread and some sweet butter. Let me in." Why do you think the wolf would use that voice when he's talking to the grandma? "Oh, you'll have to lift the latch and let yourself in, dear," the grandmother called out. "I'm feeling too weak to get out of bed." So the wolf lifted the latch, opened the door, and he ran straight to the bed, and without even saying good morning, he ate up the poor old grandmother in one gulp. And then he put on a clean nightgown and a shawl that were lying on a chair by the bedside, and got into bed and pulled the curtains closer together. Uh-oh. Who is Little Red Riding Hood going to find when she gets there? In the meantime, Little Red Riding Hood wandered here and there, picking flowers until she had an armful that she could barely hold on to. Then suddenly she remembered her grandmother and the promise she made to her mother. So she found her way back to the path and walked straight to the cottage. When she got there, she was amazed to find the door open. She tiptoed in. She felt quite frightened, but she didn't know why. What's wrong, she thought. I always like coming to grandmother so much. Why would I be afraid? Do you think she has a bad feeling? Good morning, grandmother, she called, but there was no answer. Then she went quietly into the bedroom and pulled the bed curtains back, and there lay her grandmother. But she had her shawl down over her face, and she looked very odd. Red Riding Hood couldn't help but stare. Grandmother, what big hairy ears you have, she said. All the better to hear you with, my dear. Does that look like a grandma? Oh, grandmother, your eyes are so shiny. All the better to see you with, my dear. Your hands look so strange, grandmother. All the better to catch you and hug you with, my dear. Please, Grandma, why do you have such big, sharp teeth? Those are to eat you up with, my dear. And the wolf said this, and he sprang out of bed and ate up poor Little Red Riding Hood. And then, having finished his first good meal in as many weeks, the wicked wolf went back to bed and was soon snoring so loudly. Not long after that, a huntsman from the village passed by the grandmother's cottage. That old lady is snoring much too loudly. Maybe I should stop in and see if there's anything the matter with her. So he went right in the house and up to her bed, and that's where he saw the wolf fast asleep in the grandmother's nightgown and shawl, and his stomach was so full it was almost bursting. Uh-oh. Right away, the huntsman guessed what happened. So here you are, he said. I've been looking for you all these years, and this is where I find you. He wondered if the wicked wolf might have swallowed the grandmother whole, and perhaps he could still save her. So he opened the wolf's stomach. But the first thing he saw was a red velvet cloak. And after a few moments, the little girl jumped out and cried, "Oh, thank you! I was so frightened. It was so dark inside the wolf." Next, the grandmother climbed out. She was so frightened. They thanked the huntsman with all their hearts, and he was so glad to see them, both alive and well, that he hugged Little Red Riding Hood, and he shook the grandmother's hand over and over again. They were all quite happy. The huntsman took the wolf home, and Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother sat down together to eat fresh bread and sweet butter. After a while, the grandmother felt quite strong and healthy and began to clean up the mess. As Little Red Riding Hood walked home through the woods, she thought to herself, "I will never wander off the forest path again as long as I live. I should have kept my promise to my mother." The end. Oh my goodness. See what happens when you don't listen to your grown-up? Now that we read it, I hope that you'll go answer the questions that were on your assignment. A grown-up will have to help you read them, and I will see you all soon. I hope you're staying safe and healthy.